Hello everyone, I am very happy to be with you today. I know many of you come to this video to sleep easily, to relax after a long day. Before we begin, if you liked this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for visiting the Dark Compass channel, spending time here with me. Truly, your support is a great motivation for me to continue telling interesting, creepy, and mysterious stories. Oh, by the way, where are you from and what time are you watching this video? Leave a small comment. I really enjoy reading each line you share. Now relax your body, take a deep breath, and join me in the story. The smell hits me first every morning. Boiled cabbage mixed with something metallic, like pennies left in a hot car. It seeps through the walls of my studio apartment, that narrow basement box I call home in Manhattan, where sunlight feels like a luxury. The windows face a ventilation shaft so tight, sunlight barely reaches in. 3 weeks ago, they gutted the apartment next door. Chemical leak, the super explained with a shrug that suggested this kind of thing happened all the time in buildings like this. Industrial-grade cleaning, hazmat suits, the whole production. For 2 days straight, men in white suits filed past my windows like ghosts, carrying sealed containers and equipment I couldn't identify. The super had knocked once to warn me about potential odors, assuring me everything was contained. Everything was not contained. The first night after they finished, the smell hit me cabbage and burnt metal so thick I could taste it coating my teeth. I checked every surface, mini fridge, hot plate, even the garbage disposal. Nothing. The smell seemed to seep from the walls themselves, strongest near the closet. That closet had a peculiar door, painted over so many times it looked like a thick scar, sealed with industrial adhesive. According to the original blueprints, those ID convinced the management office to share, that door shouldn't exist. The plan showed a continuous wall, leading only to a corridor labeled service. The super claimed he'd never noticed it. Probably from renovations in the 70s, he shrugged. They did all kinds of weird stuff back then. On the 4th night, the shadows began moving. Subtle at first, a dark smear sliding across the wall, like a figure just out of sight. I turned on my phone's flashlight, sweeping it across the room. Nothing. Just the furniture, the sealed door, walls painted off-white with decades of neglect. The next morning, I rationalized it as reflections from the street, passing cars, Manhattan's endless lights. But the following nights, the shadows continued moving without light sources, always at the edge of my vision, always just as I was about to sleep. When I focused on them directly, they froze. I started keeping a notebook, recording the times and directions. After a week, the pattern emerged, almost like patrol routes. The wardrobe started making noise during week 2. A simple IKEA wardrobe, slightly unstable. But now, sounds came from inside, caking, groaning, sharp cracks like wood splitting under weight. The sounds occurred between 2 and 4 a.m., when the cabbage smell was strongest. I installed a sliding lock, more habit than necessity. But even locked, the wardrobe seemed to resist confinement. One night I opened it, everything normal. Clothes hanging, books stacked neatly. As soon as I closed it, the creaking resumed. Noise-canceling headphones did little. The sounds penetrated them all. Then the touch came. Tuesday morning, shaving. My mirror angled to catch scant light from the ventilation shaft. Fluorescent bulb flickering. Something cold pressed against my right shoulder weight. Fingers spread wide, deliberate. Not grabbed, just pressed. Through shirt, through skin, to the bone. I spun, blade nearly cutting my ear, and found nothing. Just air in the narrow hallway. The cold lingered for almost an hour. Researching the building's history revealed partial records from the 1940s. Single-family home converted into apartments in 1962. Further subdivided in 1978. During renovations, remnants of World War II-era service tunnels were sealed. Notes on structural integrity and tenant safety, some tunnels dangerous, some mysteriously omitted. The sealed door? Not mentioned specifically. Timing aligned with renovations. I installed a small security camera to monitor the closet. Every attempt failed. Within a 3-foot radius around the door, electronic devices went black. Phones, tablets, cameras, even Wi-Fi signals dropped. Audio recorders captured only static. My vintage wristwatch stopped tracking time accurately near the door. I returned to the super, bought him a few beers. Surprising how forthcoming he became. The previous tenant, a grad student from Columbia, had lived there for 2 years, left abruptly. Complaints about smells, sounds, and that door. The super shrugged. Insurance liability. Some tunnels aren't safe. I was allowed access to the storage room where the student's belongings remained. 2 boxes of notebooks, sketches, and architectural diagrams. The previous tenant documented everything. Shadow patterns, temperature fluctuations, electromagnetic readings. His notes became erratic but familiar. He had experienced the same shadows, sounds, and electronic interference. The student noted atmospheric conditions, low barometric pressure, humidity over 70%, intensifying the phenomena. The sealed door marked a convergence point in the tunnel network. His final entries nearly illegible, not just one door. They're all connected. Something is learning. I cross-referenced his research with my own experiences. The parallels were chilling. His final sketch, a map of basement tunnels, showing connections not only under my unit, but also to apartments above and below. A labyrinth hidden in plain sight, converging on sealed doors. Then the whispers began. Faint, at first. Low murmurs, impossible to localize. Between the wardrobe and the closet door, the voice grew intelligible, a cold, gravelly cadence. Not my name. Not words I recognized, just communication, testing, prodding. I recorded audio static. Tried again, nothing. A week later, the wardrobe shifted violently during the night, spilling books and clothes. The smell intensified, metallic, acidic. Shadows stretched unnaturally, scraping against walls. I woke drenched in sweat, heart pounding. The air seemed heavier, as if the room had gained mass. One night, I opened the wardrobe again. The air inside was colder than the hallway, a dry metallic chill. The books on the top shelf were rearranged, spelling words I did not consciously write. Look closer. Panic set in. Sleep became impossible. I avoided the closet, avoided the wardrobe. But every mirror reflected anomalies, fleeting shadows, flickers of a figure standing just beyond sight. Even my reflection felt wrong. I returned to municipal records. A single note caught my eye. Abandoned tunnels lead to unregistered chambers. Historical reports note disappearances of tenants who access sealed doors. My blood ran cold. Could it be more than architectural oversight? Determined to document everything, I set up multiple cameras at the limits of the interference radius and stayed awake, recording all movements. By the third night, the shadows no longer paused when observed. They moved freely, patrolling silently, sometimes aligning with the convergences marked on the old map. Then, a new phenomenon. The walls themselves seemed to pulse subtly, almost breathing. Not visually obvious at first, but perceptible in the peripheral vision. Coupled with the smell, the touch, the whispers, I understood something alive existed inside the building. Not human. Not material. Something old, hungry, intelligent. I consulted the super again. He warned me. Some things should stay sealed. We don't know what triggers them, and the tunnels, they shift. Not every night, not every month, but when they move, it's not predictable. I spent nights tracking barometric pressure, humidity, and electrical anomalies. Patterns emerged. Certain nights, the convergence points aligned perfectly. Doors shook, shadows marched. The whispers formed partial words. I began dreaming of tunnels, endless corridors, shadows moving independently, as if guiding me somewhere beneath the city. I opened the wardrobe one last time. The books were gone. Instead, a small hatch at the back wall of the wardrobe had appeared, perfectly cut into the particle board. A faint, sickly green light emanated. The cold pressing against my shoulder intensified. Whispers now clear, join you. I felt an irresistible pull, not from curiosity, but from something older something that wanted me to step into the tunnels, to follow the network mapped out by the grad student, to uncover the secret of the sealed doors. I paused, my phone, camera, all electronics dead within the radius. I reached toward the hatch. A single thought echoed. Do I want to know? Finally, I decided. I slid open the hatch. A spiral of metal steps descended into darkness. The green light pulsed faintly. Each step produced a metallic echo, a whispering accompaniment. The air was colder, heavier, smelling of the same cabbage metal mixture, and something else. Something like decay and history itself. Downstairs, the tunnels were wider than expected, walls lined with rusted pipes and cables, sketches from the grad student etched into concrete. Shadows moved independently, splitting and merging, always just at the edge of perception. Some seemed curious, others hunting. I followed the sketches, noting convergence points where the shadows became denser. At the central chamber, dozens of sealed doors from apartments above and below converged, forming a web. Whispers now resonated as a chorus, low and commanding. You are here. You belong. A figure emerged, not human, but vaguely humanoid, thin, elongated, limbs too long. Its eyes glowed faintly, mirroring the green light. It advanced, motion smooth, deliberate. The tunnel seemed to lean toward it, walls pulsating with a rhythm like a heartbeat. Fear rooted me in place. The figure paused, studied me, and tilted its head. It knew I had followed. The smell intensified, almost suffocating. Then, unexpectedly, it gestured toward a smaller door in the chamber, one I had not noticed in the grad student sketches. Open, the whispers urged. Hands shaking, I reached for the latch. A wave of cold surged, making every nerve scream. I opened it. Inside, a room perfectly preserved, untouched by time. Papers, notebooks, and equipment, all belonging to previous tenants who had dared to investigate. Some journals ended abruptly. Some contained desperate warnings. Do not touch. Do not follow. They learn, and then I understood. The building was alive. The doors were its organs, the shadows its circulation, and the tunnels its veins. It learned from anyone who probed it. Every note, every observation, every attempt to map the tunnels added to its intelligence. The figure stepped closer. The whispers crescendoed, pressing against my skull. Now you are part of US. I had a choice, flee and risk being hunted in the shadows, or surrender knowledge to the building, to join the chorus of whispers that had been growing for decades. My reflection in a small mirror on the wall no longer showed me, just shadows merging into the green glow. I did not step backward. I did not run. My curiosity, my need to understand, had bound me. As I reached toward the figure, the room dissolved into light, shadows stretching infinitely, whispering secrets older than the city itself. And then, silence. Thin hammer, I began carefully prying at the back panel of the wardrobe. Every movement made the wood groan and crack slightly, as if protesting. The smell of cabbage and metal grew more pungent, filling my nostrils and making my eyes water. My heartbeat quickened, every nerve screaming that I was crossing a line that perhaps shouldn't be crossed. Finally, the panel gave way just enough to create a small gap. Through the opening, I could see a faint greenish light pulsing rhythmically. The voices were louder now, more urgent, and layered as if multiple conversations were happening simultaneously. I felt an almost magnetic pull toward that space, a compulsion I could not resist. I hesitated, reminding myself that this was likely a hallucination, the result of stress, lack of sleep, and exposure to whatever chemicals had been in the neighboring unit. But the voices were too precise, the movements of shadows too deliberate. Something was behind that wall, something aware. I grabbed my flashlight and slipped inside the wardrobe. My knees barely bent enough to fit. The confined space pressed in from all sides. The air was cold, sharp, tasting metallic. And then, for the first time, I saw them not full figures, but shapes, indistinct, shifting in the corner of my vision, just beyond the light. They moved with intent, gliding over surfaces rather than walking. One shadow separated slightly, extending toward me, its edges wavering as if the light itself could not define it. The pulsing green glow emanated from cracks in the back of the wardrobe, highlighting the tunnel beyond. I reached out, hesitating. The moment my fingers touched the warped wood, a vibration ran through the floorboards, up my arms, and into my chest. The voices froze mid-phrase, replaced by a low humming, deep and resonant, vibrating through the apartment. It was a sound I could feel in my bones. Summoning courage or perhaps madness, I pushed the panel aside entirely. Behind it, a narrow vertical shaft descending into darkness. The light seemed to recede, fading as if the shadows themselves were absorbing it. I could smell decay mixed with that metallic cabbage odor. And then faintly, the echo of footsteps moving below. I climbed carefully into the shaft, flashlight in hand, heart hammering. The walls were brick, damp and cold. The greenish light emanated from deeper within, pulsing in rhythm with the vibrations I felt earlier. Whispers had returned, now layered over each other, indistinct but insistent, compelling me to descend further. The shaft opened into a tunnel wider than I had anticipated. Arched brick ceilings, remnants of World War II-era construction. Pipes ran along the sides, rusted, dripping water in slow, irregular intervals. Shadows moved independently along the walls, gliding silently, some converging at points where the bricks themselves seemed to shimmer. I remembered the grad students' diagrams junctions, convergence points, passages linking my unit to several others above and below, and now I was inside one of them. Each step I took echoed unnaturally, bouncing off walls as if the tunnel were alive, amplifying my presence. Then came the temperature shift. The farther I walked, the colder it became. My breath steamed in front of me, forming icy clouds despite the apartment above being warm and humid. The smell intensified, filling my lungs, making it hard to breathe without gagging. And the shadows, they were following, always at the edges of my vision, converging, separating, watching. I reached a junction marked in the grad student's notes simply as the source. 3 corridors extended from it, each pulsing with that green light. The voices were louder here, more distinct, overlapping in urgent discussion. I could hear fragments. Must continue. Check the convergence. Never leave, learn, adapt. It became clear that the building itself was sentient. The doors, the walls, the tunnels, they weren't passive structures. The shadows were its eyes, the whispers its voice. And the convergence points were its brain, feeding on observation, on curiosity, on fear. I paused, realizing the implication. Any attempt to explore further was being recorded, analyzed. I was being studied, incorporated into the building's intelligence. And the urge to keep going, to descend further, was no longer my own. A sudden movement to my left drew my gaze. One shadow detached itself entirely from the wall, coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape. Too tall, limbs elongated unnaturally, edges wavering. It moved silently, gliding over the wet brick floor toward me. I stumbled backward, flashlight swinging. The figure halted, just beyond the reach of the light. Then, as if sensing my fear, it extended a shadowy limb toward me. The whispers coalesced into a single voice, deep and resonant. You understand now. You are part of the pattern. Panic surged. I turned, retracing my steps toward the wardrobe shaft, but the path seemed to stretch, walls elongating, ceiling rising unnaturally. The green light pulsed faster, brighter. The figure moved closer, silent except for the low hum that now felt like a heartbeat. I reached the shaft, climbed desperately, every movement echoing unnaturally. Reaching the apartment floor, I thought I was free, but the temperature had dropped further, colder than winter nights outside. The shadows had followed, pooling in corners of the room, stretching across the walls. The wardrobe stood open, just as I had left it, but I no longer felt I could enter it. The shadows inside pulsed, waiting. The green light flickered, revealing more shapes than before, some humanoid, some completely alien, all observing. I realized the truth. The apartment wasn't just haunted, it was alive. Every sealed door, every shadow, every interference was a neuron in a vast growing network. The building had learned, adapted, and now I was part of its system. I backed away, every instinct screaming to flee. The whispers followed, pressing into my mind. Learn, adapt, do not resist. We are everywhere. My phone, camera, everything electronic still failed within the radius of the closet. Even my wristwatch had stopped. I tried rational thought to convince myself I could leave, that I could escape, but the shadows pulsed with intent. The green light from the wardrobe intensified, casting long, spindly reflections across the walls. My reflection in a mirror no longer looked like me. It was a shadow, elongated, merging with the green glow. Then the whispers became clear. You belong. I froze, understanding I had been observed, tested, and now chosen. Whether by curiosity, fear, or inevitability, I stepped toward the wardrobe, toward the green light, toward the convergence. The shadows reached for me, but not violently, more like hands guiding, urging. I climbed partially into the wardrobe shaft again, feeling the cold, metallic air envelop me. The whispers now intertwined with my heartbeat, synchronizing, guiding me deeper. And then the light pulsed one final time, blinding me. When it faded, the apartment was silent. No smells, no shadows, no interference. My phone worked. My wristwatch ticked normally. Yet, I knew something had followed me back. Something inside me now. A pattern. A memory. A presence. I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to rationalize, to convince myself it was a hallucination, but the sensation remained. At night, I could feel faint whispers in the walls. The wardrobe occasionally shifted slightly, as if breathing. And I understood I would never be alone again. The building had claimed another observer, another node, and I could not undo it. Hello everyone. If this story chilled you, remember to like the video, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Comment where you're rewatching from and what time. It lets me know who's experiencing this story tonight. And remember, some doors are better left closed, but curiosity always finds a way.